Okay, our last question. With rising home prices, the conversation has arisen about providing affordable housing. What do you see as the pros and cons of Erie adopting some affordable housing areas? Christian, you start.
So the pros is that our police officers, our teachers, and our grocery store cashiers could actually live in the town that we call home and enjoy all of the amazing things that Erie has to offer. We could reduce traffic on our roads. We can reduce pollution that enters the environment. We can make general life happier for people that want to and deserve to live in Erie. When the way that the question is worded, affordable housing areas, I think that is misleading. I don't think that affordable housing belongs in the corner of town. I value everyone that wants to call Erie home, and I want them to be integrated into every single community so that they can enjoy Erie. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is, the bottom part is misleading a little bit, but that is actually something that has been discussed when your board actually had the study session where they were talking about the credit that goes from developers to the town so that it can be used in other areas. So that is something that is on the table. So currently our median household income is $124,000 here in Erie. The median sale price of a home is $750,000. So that means that an individual to actually come here into the town, first-time home buyer, $37,500 just to close, and then they're paying $3,600 per month for their mortgage. And then you have a conventional buyer, $144,000 to close, and then they're sitting there with over $3,000 on their mortgage. That doesn't sound very affordable to me. The current plan that the town adopted is actually Boulder County's plan, which is 30% median household income as well as deed restriction. I think we need to work with the development community to say, here is our goal, here is our plan. How do we get there? What are the strategies? What have you done in other communities? And actually have a plan to get to that point.
So in 2000, in the comp plan update, it was recognized that Erie needed a plan for inclusionary housing, and it was recommended that we adopt an inclusionary housing ordinance. That was done in 2021, and it wasn't even an ordinance, not an ordinance yet. It's a goal. 12% of our housing stock by 2035 should be affordable. So what this did was enabled the planning department to apply for and receive a grant from the Department of Local Affairs. That grant is being used to do a study to understand exactly what the need is in front of Erie. Erie's need for inclusionary housing includes our workforce, our teachers, our police force, grocery store workers, my college graduate daughters who would love to be able to move closer to their hometown and need that entry-level housing. This is why it is so important for Erie to address affordable or inclusionary housing. Staff is scheduled to bring a recommendation for an ordinance in June, and it'll be important for this next board to address that.
I honestly can't think of any cons to having affordable housing. We're not talking about building slums or projects. We're talking about housing that is attainable for our residents, housing that's attainable for our first responders, for our teachers, for our children who move out of the home, for our seniors. We're talking about creating a diversity of housing options for people, and it's a multifaceted, long-range issue that we need to start addressing. And I think the first step in addressing it is getting a board of trustees that acknowledges it as a real problem that needs attention. Thank you.
I think rising home prices probably could have been included in that one question where it's like, what can Erie do about it? It's a macroeconomic issue, right? Seen around the whole country. It's tied to inflation and interest rates, national level things far from Erie's control. When you say affordable housing, I think that means subsidized, right, by someone. So ultimately, it's going to be taxpayers or consumers. So I don't think guarantees anything about workers coming here and working in Erie. I think that's a possibility, but it's not a guarantee. So I'd prefer to focus on cutting bureaucracy, cutting red tape, cutting government involvement that just ultimately drives up costs everywhere. So I think single-family homes in Erie aren't intended to be the first buyers. They're 500,000. So I think let's offer other housing types where people can get in, get some equity, work their way up as they grow in their life. I think that's kind of the American way anyways, right? So I do feel for the young people that are looking to buy a home, but we all go through that, and I think there's great ways that they can afford bigger houses later on in their lives.
So there's a lot to say on this subject, but really quick, I'm just going to kind of dive in and say there's two possible meanings to affordable housing. One is you have a diverse type of house that's sold at fair market value, and the other is it's subsidized, sold below market value. We should definitely be doing the first. For the second, I've actually spoken to some people who work in affordable housing, and I asked them, if I buy a house that's worth $500,000 and I pay $300,000 for it, can I sell it in 6 months and get the profit? You cannot. It is deed restricted. You're not building equity. Second question is, how do you sell it below market value? Oh, well, the developers will get a tax credit. Okay, great. So now who's paying that tax? The answer is all of us. So we have people here in all different phases in their life in Erie, from child to retired. They moved here years ago, and their property values have risen, their taxes have gone up. What I care about is keeping Erie affordable for the people who live here today. I don't want to increase their tax burden. And I also disagree that we should just plop affordable housing anywhere. We don't want to place additional strain on our infrastructure. It's not going to make anyone happy to include the people who live there if they're in the middle of town and now we have gridlock everywhere. Thank you.
I want to start by clarifying something that I think is very important. We already have teachers, first responders, people on fixed incomes living in our community. And they're living in their homes, and we need to keep the cost of living at a reasonable level so that we don't push them out. We've already heard some of the pros and cons of this. When my husband and I moved into the area, he had gotten a job in the Boulder area, and we couldn't afford to live over there. We found a neighborhood that we could afford to live in Erie. We can't afford to live in every neighborhood in Erie. So there are differences even within Erie, but a lot of us are here because it's the affordable workforce housing for the employment centers around us. I think the best thing we can do is to increase the attainable housing, different types of housing, and make it possible for people to get started. The worst thing we can do is to increase the cost of housing by dictating things to developers, and also by subsidizing housing that is a dead end for the people that buy it. It limits their equity, it doesn't do them any favors, and it spreads our town resources thinner.
So affordable housing, attainable housing, those are nuanced subjects that it sounds like not everyone on this panel really understands how they work. And I'm a little frustrated with hearing that it's not my problem. These people live here now. It's because they got here when it was affordable. Home prices have tripled, salaries have not. And there are statewide, countywide housing programs that serve to provide workforce housing. All of our neighbors, all of the neighboring communities have such ordinances. We do not. Erie's a trendsetter in a sense that we have not adopted an actual ordinance. We have a goal of 12%. And so partnering with outside entities such as county, state, and federal entities that provide affordable paths and that allow for an approach that is appropriate for Erie, because our solution may be different than others, I think that is the way to provide workforce housing for the small business owners who cannot find employees.